Welcome back to the Conscious Resistance. This is Orion Talk Radio, and my name is Derek Brose. I'm very, very pleased to bring to you my next guest, Kevin Booth. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking some time to talk to us. I've been chatting up some of your work throughout the show. But to those who are new to you, I guess just briefly go ahead and introduce a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into what you're currently doing.
Well, this show is out of Houston. I guess I would say I attended Stratford High School back in the 70s, where I met a guy named Bill Hicks. We ran on the track team together, and we started a punk band together called Stress. And I went on to start another band with other members that I played with from Stratford High School. The Stratford's there at West Houston, Memorial and Derry Ashford area. And Bill Hicks went on to be a comedian. And later on, then I ended up producing most of Bill's records and stand-up comedy specials. We ended up playing in other bands together. When Bill passed away in '94 from pancreatic cancer, I started working with Alex Jones. I did a couple films with Alex Jones. And then I broke off and went solo and started doing my own films about the drug war. And my first feature documentary that was more or less my first solo project, American Drug War, premiered on Showtime in 2008. Since then, I did another film called How Weed Won the West, a little more of a playful look at the California cannabis industry. And then I've just now finished the second American Drug War film that I think I'm here to talk about today.
Yep. Well, that about brings us up to the present now. So, yeah, the American Drug War, The Great White Hope. Plenty of our listeners out there have seen that, and that's actually one that we've screened at our house. We have the Freethinker House in Houston, our community activist house. We do documentary screenings, and we've actually held a screening for that one in the past. So it's cool to reach out to you. And my friend Danny Panzella of New York City, he's been doing a great job trying to promote the movie. And, I wanted to get you on to talk about it, man. How does the second film in the American Drug War series differ from the first?
It's extremely different. First of all, you don't have to see the first one to watch the second one. The second one stands all alone, and it's not really a sequel in the sense that it picks up where the first one left off. The first film is kind of my idea of an A to Z primer of what's going on with American drug policy. Everything from the crack epidemic to crystal meth, medical marijuana, private prisons, the CIA, Iran-Contra. We go and really become close to a guy named Freeway Ricky Ross, who was known for selling or turning cocaine that the CIA was bringing in during Iran-Contra and turning it into crack, and basically creating a huge cracked out society in LA in the late 80s, early 90s. We go into the gangs of Los Angeles and gangs all over the United States. So the first Drug War is an A to Z primer. The second film is a much more personal look, zooms in on more character-driven stories. It covers what's going on with children and how children are the ultimate victims of American drug policy. And one of the main story threads is a little boy named Cash Hyde who is diagnosed with a brain tumor, and he's in the hospital for 40 days in a coma, and the hospital staff is telling his parents to prepare for a funeral. And the parents find this guy on the internet named Rick Simpson, who's been creating this new cannabis oil that's been reportedly curing cancer all over the world. And as a last-ditch effort, they start secretly injecting this cannabis oil into their dying son's feeding tube. And the little boy pops out of the coma, and the tumor goes away, and he starts eating again. And that's where that story starts. And then the movie follows that story for 2 years. It's a roller coaster ride. I don't want to give any spoiler alerts. It's a very traumatic story. And then one of the other main story threads too is that my wife and I become foster parents, and we didn't become foster parents as a stunt for the film. We really became foster parents because we couldn't have children of our own, and we decided this was a way to give something back and to start a family. But our very first experience right out of the gates was with this young girl that we were only going to have for a short time, and she came to us with all these powerful medicines that we were forced to have to give her. If we didn't give her all these medications, she would have been taken away from us. And it was just a complete in-your-face indoctrination into the world of foster care and how all these foster children are being way over-medicated, far more so than even your average children. I mean, average children today are being over-medicated, but the kids in foster children in foster care are all being over-medicated. In fact, finding a child that's not being medicated in foster care is almost hard to do.
Yeah, we were just covering before you came on, Kevin, a study from Tel Aviv University from Israel, where 17 out of the 19 elderly patients that were smoking cannabis over a period of a year all were able to stop using psychotropic drugs, big pharmaceutical company drugs, and instead started to rely more on cannabis. And with Rick Simpson's work, it definitely shows, I think, a crack in that false paradigm that the medical industry has a monopoly on health.
Well, this is how it was back less than 100 years ago. So, people have very short memories, and now we've had about 2 or 3 generations of people, my parents' generation, their parents' generation, that have been really supremely brainwashed by the government into thinking that anything that's medicine has to come from a big laboratory. Anything that's medicine has to be basically petroleum-based. And before about 1913, before John D. Rockefeller took control over this whole deal, everything was plant-based. And a doctor's bag was filled with all different types of cannabis oils. And different types of cannabis oils and hemp oils were used to treat everything. And they didn't really totally understand how it works, and they don't really totally understand how it works today. They try to use the idea that they don't know how it works today as the reason why it shouldn't be legal. And so it's like, well, this stuff may kill you, but at least we understand how it works, and therefore it should be legal. So take this instead of the plant-based stuff that's good for you, but we don't know how it works, so that's bad. That's the thinking. And so it's really a rediscovery of what's happened. Rick Simpson has basically rediscovered something that was being used all the time, and he's merely brought it up to modern day standards with the much more powerful marijuana that everybody has, and a little bit more modern cooking laboratory techniques.
Yeah, definitely. And he's kind of had his own dealings with the government since then.
Yeah, just very, very briefly, because, my movie's not the Rick Simpson story. If you want to see the Rick Simpson story, you should go to phoenixtears.com, and you can watch the whole documentary for free, I believe. Definitely anybody out there should check it out. Very inspirational. It's very inspirational to me and making this film. So, yeah, he had to flee Canada because of the horrors that he cured people's cancer. And in our film, we had to track him down over a Skype call. At the time, we weren't even allowed to know where he was. Afterwards, we found out that he was in Prague when we were talking to him. I do believe he's in Canada back now, and you can contact him in Canada, and he's fighting the charges.
So what do you think about, the film's out now. This is the second and one of many really great documentaries out there that have shown the failures of the drug war, also the positive benefits of medical marijuana and cannabis in general, hemp, hash oil, and all these things. We've got 2 states that have basically legalized the drug. Where do you think that we are as far as the so-called anti-drug war movement, the legalization movement?
Well, I mean, if you want to divide it up into the marijuana thing, I mean, I think yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to lump it all together into decriminalizing all drugs, and I'm with you on that. I get it, and I believe it is a matter of personal liberties, and I totally agree. But the reality-based sense of me, the side of me that has watched human history for the last 50 years of my life, it has to say, like, it's got to be marijuana first. Like, marijuana's got to get through this thing first. And, we got 2 states now that are totally legalized for recreational, like you just said. I believe more are on the way. We've got 18 states that are now allowing medical, although there's a lot of work to be done out there. I think the crux of the fight really is in places like Texas and Florida, as we do mention in the film. The Deep South is going to really be like final battleground of trying to get the federal government to say marijuana is legal on a federal level. And so I think the final battle will take place in the Deep South, and that's why places like Houston Dallas, New Orleans, Miami. All these are going to be the final battlefields for this fight. But I still think it's we're on a tipping point right now. But the tipping point doesn't mean we're going to win. I mean, everybody thought we were going to win this thing back in the 70s, and look where it is now. So I think it's great when you go to places like Colorado. Everybody there is kind of forgotten that it was even ever illegal. It's the one thing about marijuana is it seems to affect people's short memory. And you go to Colorado and it's all good, and you want to just remind all those people, it's like, yeah, but your brothers and sisters out there in pot world are still fighting and being arrested. So I sure hope that just because people get legalization in their community or their state or wherever, and that they're good, that they don't give up the fight, because they've got a lot of years into this thing, and their years of experience can help the people in places like Florida and Texas. And so I ask everybody out there in the movement in places like Colorado, Washington State, California, to don't turn your backs on the ones that are still deep in the fight, still deep in places where you're being a lot of arrests, places like Alabama and Tennessee, and help them with their knowledge, and help them with your knowledge and that we're not the fight is not over until it's legalized on a federal level. And who knows if that's ever going to happen, because the federal government really has no interest in helping put the pharmaceutical cancer industry out of business. So it's hard to say if it really ever will be free on the level that people think it should be free.
And do you think outright legalization or decriminalization, which would you favor personally?
Well, I would favor outright legalization, but I would definitely think decriminalization will be first. It's going to come in baby steps. It just seems like this whole thing is baby steps. A lot of times it's one step forward, two steps back, but then you win these little victories. And I just hope that the people in Colorado can keep it together and keep a good professional look on it, to where Colorado doesn't suddenly become a marijuana eyesore to the rest of the country, and the rest of the country looks at places like Colorado and goes and thinks ooh, we don't want that to happen here. My only experience was being in Colorado on the 420 weekend, and it was really fun to be there. I'm sure it was a lot like being in Chicago when they lifted prohibition and everybody's walking around, drinking, and I'm sure it's a lot like that. But I just hope that everybody can keep it together and realize that we've got to convince the Bible Belt to do this thing, and before the final tipping point is going to happen.
That's for sure. Now, I want to get your opinion on one more thing before I give you a chance to plug all your upcoming events. Now, there's been efforts in Philadelphia, smoke down prohibition, and other places across the country where people have been able to essentially nullify the marijuana laws, the drug laws, and just go out in large groups in public places and do mass smokeouts, at 420 or on 420. And we've seen these ideas starting to pick up steam. And do you think civil disobedience like that plays a powerful role in changing the conversation related to marijuana, where people are able to go out there and simply outnumber the police, where the police no longer see it as reasonable to arrest them?
Yeah, I do. I think it's all good, and I'm all for things like that. But my fear with things like that is that for the other 355 days out of the year, those people aren't going to be thinking that way. People need to be fighting for legalization every single day of the year. And so when you have your one day of civil disobedience, that's great. And there's going to be arrests. It's kind of like taking the war to the front lines. But that's not enough. You gotta keep the pressure going nonstop if you're really serious about this. I tour around to universities all over the country, and what I see are little groundswells of people trying to do this and try to do that. But then everybody's going so many different directions in their lives that they make a little fight or a little struggle or a little resistance, and then it all kind of just disappears. And so all I'm saying is that everybody needs to stay on this thing nonstop until it's over, because it really is. I mean, this country is in a lot of trouble, but I look at it as long as our government can put you in a cage because you consume products that don't profit certain corporations, there's not going to be freedom on any level, and this cuts to the very core of freedom. And so it doesn't matter whether you're a stoner or not. It doesn't matter whether you do any drugs or not. The idea that the government can dictate what you put into your body should outrage any freedom-loving American or freedom-loving person.
Yeah, in general. Well, go ahead, Kevin. Let everybody know where they can find more information about the American Drug War II and any showings you have coming up.
Well, we've been working through this company called Tug out of Austin, and they have a new system called Theaters on Demand. Now, the premiere was on June 6th. We were in 17 theaters on June 6th. And what people can do is they can request a screening at their favorite theater in their own community. You go to tug.com and find American Drug War 2 on there and click on it and request a screening at your favorite theater. You list your favorite 3 theaters close to you, and Tug will negotiate the price. They'll set up the whole deal. And then you have to pre-sell a certain amount of tickets to basically cover the cost of the venue. And, excuse me, right now my nephew who lives in Spring, Texas, Dustin Painter, hello Dustin if you're listening out there, he's got one coming up on July 11th at the AMC Lowe's in Spring. But he needs to sell a lot of tickets the next 10 days. If he doesn't sell 91 tickets in 10 days, it's not going to happen. But besides that, I want everybody to go to iTunes and download it and watch it.
We're going to cut to a quick break real quick. Kevin, I'm going to get you back to finish off this. We'll be right back on the Fish Resistance. Thank you, guys. I'm with Kevin Booth of the American Drug War II. Kevin, go ahead. You were telling everyone a little bit about where they can find out about some screenings you have coming up.
Right. I mean, if you just go to AmericanDrugWar2.com, you'll be able to find everything about the movie. You can request a screening at your favorite theater. If you're not into that, though, it's available already on iTunes, through Best Buy Video on Demand, PlayStation Video on Demand, Amazon Video on Demand, Google Play, and YouTube Video on Demand. It'll also be on almost every cable system coming up the next couple of months. But if you really wanted to help us right now, if you really want to help me get this thing off the ground, try to download it on iTunes, and definitely make sure that you vote for us and review us on any one of these sites, whether it's Amazon or iTunes. Please leave like a little review or vote for it. Also vote for us on IMDb. All those little ratings help in these early stages. We got Warner Brothers behind us, but Warner Brothers gauges these little numbers to like kind of figure out how much resources they're going to throw at it. So it's kind of a tricky deal. It's still up to the little artist guy like me to get it off the ground to a certain extent before the big guy is going to come in and take it from there. And so we're still kind of in those stages. I'm still running around promoting this thing as fast and hard as I can. We've had screenings going on everywhere. We've had screenings in the whole, several screenings. One, Stephen D'Angelo did that reality show for the Discovery Network, just did one a couple nights ago. The Hyde family, who's featured in the film, did a screening for Cash Hyde's birthday a couple nights ago up in San Francisco area. My nephew, Dustin Painter's got a screening coming up in Spring, Texas on July 11th, but he needs to sell like 90 tickets in the next 10 days for that to become a reality, and I'm hoping that Derek here is going to help promote that. So either go to one of those screenings, book a screening by you, get your community together, but at the same time, please watch it on video on demand through iTunes or Amazon or whatever your favorite service is. You can find it through American Drug War 2, and please give us a little rating. We really appreciate it. I hope you're into it. I'll be on Alex Jones Wednesday, too, to plug this thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin, for talking with us, and I appreciate all the work that you continue to do, man.
Thank you so much, Derek, and I hope you can work together with Dustin and Spring and help pack that theater in Spring, and let us know whatever I can do. I'll come back on there and do another show, before then.
Definitely.
If that'll help you.
For sure.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. I'll talk to you soon.